Welcome to Geographic Technologies Group's Beyond Location Intelligence webinar series. The title, GIS Challenges, Barriers and Pitfalls in Local Government. Before I do introductions, let me start by saying local government are not always successful in deploying GIS. So understanding the reasons for failure will help us solve the problems of the future. We need, therefore, to turn to and look closely at why it doesn't always work. The one thing I'd like you to leave today with is actionable intelligence. If there's one thing we can do, is start defining actionable intelligence. I really should start this webinar with an organization's failure to implement and maintain a true enterprise, sustainable, scalable, and enduring GIS begins and ends with the GIS coordinator. Compounding this is technology is changing and demands are increasing. So the old adage, misery loves company, is in play today, and I have you all for about an hour. Let me go through, before I start, let me just throw in a quote from Darwin. I'll put this in your back pocket if you would. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Darwin. Remember that as we go through this, and we'll have some fun with this webinar. What I'd like to do in the 60 minutes we have is an introduction. I'm going to introduce myself so you know a little bit about me and why I'm qualified to talk about these things. But I'd like to talk about management, technology, organizational components, and then we'll have a cold, hard look at past failure approach to strategic planning, to GIS implementation. Then we'll look at the evolution of GIS, and we'll get into the challenges, the key challenges, the barriers, the pitfalls, and all of the solutions associated with that. Remember, actionable intelligence is what we're looking for. And I want to leave you with enough information about where it can all go wrong so we can design something that will make it go right. We'll talk about, over 100 organizations can't be wrong. So, it's not as if we're making this stuff up. I want to emphasize the role of the Geographic Information Officer or the GIS Coordinator or the GIS Manager. I think everybody attending today is in some way linked to local government, either through a GIS management position, GIS analyst position, IT position, but you're all dealing with geographic information systems. And then we'll finish with maybe the top priorities for GIS success. I mean, we must define what success is. But the one thing I will assure you today is we're going to cover an awful lot of territory. And forgive me for covering so much territory, but as we go through it, please scribble down notes. And during the webinar, please submit questions in the Q&A or the chat or through the chat area. And we'll get to those at the end. But let's do an introduction first of all. I need you to know who I am and why I'm the way I am, I suppose. I'm writing a third book on geosmart cities, but a few years ago I wrote a book on geostrategic implementation planning. And then recently, a year or so ago, smart geospatial practices and applications. And it's all local government, it's towns, cities, and counties. And I've been in the business for 23 years or 25 years. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm from the north of England, and I've been in the United States 30 years. So I'm half American, half British. But the trouble is, I still carry with me that old issue of British humor. So I'm often serious, but not really serious. And I'm joking sometimes, but not really joking. I love irony. So that said, I've been roaming around North America, working with my favorite people, local government people, towns, cities, and counties of all sizes and complexities. And in doing so, I've been able to put together my thoughts and ideas on the challenges, barriers, and pitfalls. And here's just an example of where I've been and where we continue to go. And we continue to go international, and we continue to go, we're still doing a lot of work in Canada, which is fantastic. And we're doing a lot of work overseas. But it's interesting, you know, because I believe that a lot of organizations not only make the same mistakes, but they make the same mistakes at the same time. So with the evolving GIS technology and with the complexity of that technology comes challenges and a lot of barriers and a lot of pitfalls. Fortunately, a lot of our clients have won awards, and I put that down to developing a plan. So the one thing I will recommend before we even get started is develop a plan. You can do it organically, but you need to do it. Let's talk about management challenges. Let's put this whole thing in perspective a little bit. All right, well, let's just take a look at this. And as we're looking at this, think about using this type of information if you ever are questioned about it. Because everything we're going to talk about comes back to you as a GIS manager, GIS coordinator. So somehow you've got to navigate all these hurdles and these challenges and these pitfalls and these problems. But we need to understand them. But let's say, you know, local government didn't have GIS. And you need to be able to tell people this, that there'd be an enormous duplication of effort. There would be a manual process. There'd be a lot of wasted time, energy, and resources. The workflow wouldn't be the same. There'd be misinformed public. It would be complicated and unorganized compilation of map data. The failure to effectively turn geospatial data into actionable information. Less than effective communication. It wouldn't be streamlined. The lack of open and transparent government. Poor citizen interaction. Poor management. No map standards. No predictive analytic capabilities, and more. So let's put it in perspective. On a very positive note, as we're going to get to all these challenges, barriers, and pitfalls, we have to understand what local government would look like. Now, then, what are the outcomes of misguided governance? Well, if we don't do our job properly, there's going to be assumption-based decision-making, and it happens. And in local government, you have empire building. You have departments building their own empires, and we have misinformed public if we're not good GIS managers. And these are some of the outcomes. Data and process duplication. Duplication is an enormous issue in local government. Variations in priorities. Internal competition. Information hoarding. Inability to locate critical and timely information. Insensitivity to user needs. Insufficient prevention and response. Ineffective or inefficient decision-making, poor training, poorly maintained and misplaced data, everyone going their own way. So I want us all to understand when I said that failure to implement and maintain a true enterprise, sustainable, scalable, and enduring GIS begins and ends with the GIS coordinator. I've just given you some reasons to believe in yourself, that you're here to avoid these types of things. This is misguided management, misguided governance. So that said, you know, what are the 12 reasons why GIS or GIS management is complicated? Well, funding is always an issue, whether it's budgets or enterprise funds. That's an issue you have to wrestle with. The governance model you're using will always be a challenge. And it's evolved over the last 40 years. We've seen decentralized model to centralized to hybrid model. So there are models in place you need to embrace. Data, open data, and open government is a big issue. In today's world, sharing an open and transparent government is key, and it should be one of your goals, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge from an application, developing applications and software. What to use, where to use it, and how to use it. The types of users you have in your organization is a challenge. People and personality are always going to potentially be not so much a barrier to success, but they could be a barrier to success. If you don't have a training, education, and knowledge transfer plan for your organization, in a way you do. Priorities and alignment. You're in charge of the priorities and alignment. Aligning the GIS with the vision of your organization. Understanding the historic adoption is important. Understanding citizen engagement, open and transparent government, and crowdsourcing applications. You must embrace the complexity of all the workflows, whether it's parcel workflows, whether it's asset management and water, sewer, stormwater, electric, gas, all of those types of things. That workflow has to be embraced by you. Of course, then there's the technology and architecture. So if you want 12 reasons why there are management challenges, they're there. And I'm going through these rapidly because we're going to revisit them when we start talking about kind of solution. But it's important to recognize, you know, or get introduced to that idea of there's a lot of moving parts. Okay, let's look at this for a second. Elected officials may have little concern for GIS functionality, but they do want to know how GIS can deliver a return on the taxpayers' money, how investing in GIS technology can make their communities a safer place to live. You need to understand that, otherwise that's a challenge. It's always a challenge or a barrier or pitfall if you don't understand that you've got different agendas going on in local government. So you've got the agendas of elected officials or senior staff, and then you've got government administrators. Not only oversee the adoption of management GIS, but must also understand ways to invest resources that will benefit all of the stakeholders. Clear lines of responsibility, accountability, alignment, and measurable results are key for government administrators. Remember your audience. Otherwise, this will be a challenge and it will be your undoing. One thing I probably won't do, and I should do today, is effectively give examples. But I've been to many organizations where the GIS group have just misinterpreted or misunderstood that there are different agendas within the organization. The IT director and the GIS coordinator, I know, well, you're concentrating on taking or bringing the technology to the users, designing the architecture, managing bandwidth demands, budgeting for software, training personnel, and making it happen. But we have to recognize that there are different levels of personalities within local government. What I want you to write down as we're going through this is your interpretation of what I'm saying. So you must understand that at some stage, you're going to be presenting and talking to different people, you know, and they have different agendas. Like the IT people, some of the IT people see GIS as a technical issue, you know, whereas other people will see it as a management issue. So we have to understand who our audience is within local government. So these are all just 1,000 management challenges I'm throwing at you at the moment. It's always nice to take a deep breath and look at another quote from Darwin. In the long history of humankind, those who learn to collaborate and improve most effectively prevail. Okay. So when I talk about solutions, you know, I gave you that Darwin quote earlier. You need to adapt, but now we need to collaborate. So we need to adapt and collaborate. So as a GIS manager, GIS analyst, or somebody who is moving forward with your GIS career, even in any career, you need to adapt and you need to collaborate. Now, another quote, again, the most important single ingredient in the formula for success is knowing how to get along with people. Again, these are just reminders to us all. I just wanted you to take a deep breath because I'll get into this. And as we go through this 60 minutes I have with you, we're going to get into some of the darker areas. And we need to understand what we can do to make it work. And sometimes there's a simple formula in terms of getting along with people, collaborating with people, and adapting and overcoming. Now, a quick reminder on the management challenges that, and this is a quick reminder to us all, is the fact that I put this up because it came out of my book, and I wanted to demonstrate that this is a cyclical thing in as much as you're always strategically planning, you're always analyzing and designing and developing and deploying and producing and maintaining. So GIS is not like any other discipline at all. And remember that you always have to compartmentalize, you know, the evolution of GIS, but the tasks that you have to address. You know, you have to plan for things. You have to be you have to understand the state-of-the-art solutions and have a plan for the future, and then be maintaining all the data and educating everybody and making sure the IT infrastructure is in place and the workflows are in place. Okay, so just a quick reminder that there are different phases. Now, if you look at the selling part of it, which is the greatest challenge, is you're always going to be asked, what is GIS and why should our city invest in GIS, and how does it work, and what are the benefits of GIS, and how much does it cost, and who will manage it? Remember, these are the questions. Don't be blindsided by the fact that somebody's going to ask you these questions. If you are GIS manager, GIS coordinator, geographic information officer, senior GIS analyst, or IT specialist who's in charge of GIS, you're going to be asked these questions, so be prepared to answer them. But remember, the key thing is to educate and answer at the same time. I've stood in front of elected officials, and basically I've had an idea that these people have probably 10 different agendas, whether the agenda is utilities, whether it's social equity, whether it's finance, whether it's we're a high-tech city or a high-tech town or a high-tech county, it doesn't matter. They have different agendas. Now, we're fortunate because GIS embraces all of those agendas. Understand that. So whatever you write down now, if you are writing anything down, please write down that you need to be prepared to talk to these people. And you need to understand on a separate issue, this I'm moving forward quickly, you need to also understand where you are as an organization. So as a GIS manager, you need, the challenge is keeping track of where you are with regards GIS. So you need to know everything about your governance model. You need to know everything about digital data and databases, the accuracy and reliability. You do need to know about interoperability or procedures, workflow, and integration. You've got to have a full complement, or you have a full knowledge of GIS software. And for most of us, it's the Esri ecosystem. You need to understand web-based, web-based, desktop-based, and mobile-based solutions. You have to have a training plan, otherwise it's just not, you're not serving all your users very well. And then, of course, the GIS infrastructure and architecture. Nobody said that this GIS management thing was going to be easy. And when you look at all the technologies, GIS has more moving parts than anything else I've ever seen, because you are going from literally soup to nuts. You're going from educating to high tech, to deployment, to programming, to everything. Okay, so again, the challenge for you is to understand or have a high level understanding of all this and getting into the details as well. Cool, that was just management challenges. And I better check, I'm already at 119. Let's look at the technology perspective then. Okay, how the heck can you, and this is the challenge I have for you, I put this together because my intention was to try and understand the architecture, including the desktop software solutions, the web software solutions, the mobile solutions of the Esri software ecosystem. I needed to draw it out and then break it down so I could explain it to people that there's a reason we need desktop solutions, and there's a reason we need web solutions and mobile solutions. And at some stage, right in the middle, is going to be the future, is solutions that have desktop functionality that are mobile and, web-based. But Remember this, GIS is immensely sound and rich with benefits. It is laden with extraordinary examples of how it supports our world. It has made and continues to make a dramatic and positive difference in the way local government operates in the 21st century. All right, remember, keep your feet firmly on the ground. Don't let me slap you around because I'm bombarding you all with loads of information that will make your head spin. But again, it's the challenge. Okay, you need to put a list together. You've also got to look at your IT infrastructure. Like we look at, sorry to use these terms, but hosted hybrid, hosted cloud, hosted outsourcing. I won't dwell on that, and I don't. And this is just a few of our examples where we've talked with very successful. All of these on the board here: City of Guelph, Healdsburg, Unalaska, Windsor, and Oslo, all incredibly successful organisations. They've planned, they've designed, and they've implemented. But at some stage, you've also got to talk about the IT infrastructure. And you have to understand the future of IT and outsourcing and software as a service, etc., and all of that. So that's important. 5 organizational components. I'd love to spend hours talking to you about these. And I've got my book here, which talks about, well, let me say this. A client asked me, what are the top 5 challenges in adopting and implementing successful GIS? Well, my answer was going to be probably, data, people, technology, and so forth, and all that stuff. Instead, I came up with these components that basically the 5 challenges, and this is, the reason I'm showing you this is so you can use this language, this vernacular. That if someone comes to you and says basically, hey, what are the challenges of GIS? Well, you can say, well, there are strategic challenges, there are tactical challenges, technical and logistical, as well as political challenges or components, and they all make up GIS. And if you look at strategic components, the strategics are, what is the vision for GIS? What is the goal for GIS technology? What are the short-term and long-term goals and objectives? How do we define our organization goals and objectives? How will the GIS enhance our organization's functions? And 100 more. And then if you look at the tactical components across in blue, across to the right, that's more about how will our organization manage this GIS? How will we enforce the governance model? What general policies and procedures are needed? How best should we use GIS software licensing? And then if you look at the technical, in green, the technical components, the technical components of what type of GIS and IT architecture, what are the network components, what are the system design specifications, what GIS data administration options exist, and more, plenty more. And then if you look to logistical in the orange, which says the rational supply, support, and assistance, is who should perform what types of tasks within the organization. Is it possible for existing staff to perform GIS work? What are the costs of GIS implementation? And then you look at, obviously, the political challenges. And that's more about how do we sell GIS to decision makers? How do we secure buy-in from elected officials? And more. In fact, each of those, I think I put together 15 or 20 kind of explanations of what we mean by this. So again, actionable intelligence. So what you could leave with today is saying, well, David Holdstock presented the GIS Challenges, Barriers and Pitfalls, and he basically says they kind of fall into strategic components, tactical components, technical components, logistical components, and political components. And that gives you an opportunity to compartmentalize all of these challenges, barriers, and pitfalls, and kind of compartmentalize them so you can discuss them. Most of what we're doing today, okay, is all about compartmentalizing things so we can talk about them. So it makes it understandable. I think most people in science, the art is making it understandable. Now, if we look at the cold reality, let's look at some cold realities here. Because remember, this is GIS Challenges, Barriers and Pitfalls. Let's look at a pass-fail approach, okay? Let's look at a city. There's no names being mentioned here. But if you look at city A, They had a multi-year GIS strategic implementation plan. They had a key sponsor. They had optimum governance, optimum staffing plan, good governance model, enterprise department intranet deployed, published successes and secured awards, used state, federal, and local data, invested less than $1 million. Elected officials supported, good GIS coordinator. City B failed. Why did they fail? Well, they didn't have a plan, and they didn't have a sponsor, and the staffing was incorrect, and the governance model wasn't working, and there wasn't an enterprise solution, no success stories, and there was strict data accuracy standards. I think this is the organization where the city engineers, a few years ago, the city engineers said, we're not doing anything until everything is centimeter accuracy. Obviously, he didn't understand GIS. Elected officials pulled the funding for the GIS initiative, and at the end of the day, we have to say that the GIS manager was relatively poor because he didn't meet, or she or he didn't meet those criteria. That's pass or failed. Why don't we look at accounting? Similar types of things are going on here. I don't need to repeat them all, but you can see that there's no success stories. If you look at the failed county, they had a plan, but there's no key sponsor, and the small staff had limited power. It was a good governance model, but GIS placed in IT, but too few staff. Good enterprise-wide solutions, no success stories and no selling of it. Used all available digital data, which is good. Reasonable investment. Elected officials were not educated and sold on GIS. So you can see the difference between pass or fail. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why County B failed, because they didn't check everything off. And mark my words, is that you need to check them all off. You leave one of them hanging, and it jeopardizes the entire initiative. And if we look at a town, the pass town had a 3-year plan, a detailed plan. I know what city this is, I know what town this is. They had a sponsor, or someone who could promote the GIS. Optimum staffing, good governance, enterprise software, international publications. They had used all data, annual investment, which was secured, elected officials supported it, fair training, education, knowledge transfer tools, and great GIS project management coordination. Whereas the town just didn't have all of that. They had limited success stories, used all available data. Now, sometimes we say to organizations, it's going to be a challenge for you to get buy-in to this if you don't show quick success. There's a possibility of getting funding, but you've got to show quick success. So you can see there, we've identified a city, a county, and a town, or town, city, county. And we've given a grade, a pass or fail grade. And you can see now, and this is not made up. None of these are made up. I didn't even make this up. These are clients of ours we work with, and we fix type of thing. So we were coming in anyway. The point there is I want you to recognize the pass-fail approach, and you need to kind of even put that list together for yourself and check yourself. Okay, how we're doing on time? 1:29. We're doing okay, but there's a lot to cover. Remember, misery loves company. The evolution. Now, quickly go through this. You have to, as a GIS coordinator, GIS manager, understand the history of GIS. If you can't, it's going to be difficult for you to successfully articulate where you are and where you're going. So if we look at the history, I need you to understand what happened from the explorers to what happened in the 60s to the 80s. They were pioneers. Then we moved to managers. Then we moved to coordinators. And now we're moving into geographic information officers. Your job, you may not be called a GIO, but you may be called a GIS coordinator, but your job is all about resilience and sustainability and a smart organization. You may not know it now, but it is. And you need to look at the future, because otherwise you're going to have more challenges, more barriers, and more pitfalls because you're not using the right language. And the language is changing, and this is really important, okay? If you look at the evolution, this is something I put together, is a lot of people try to explain the evolution of GIS in local government, and they called it different things. I've called it Adoption Enhanced Operational Strategic Enterprise and Smart. Get with the program, understand where you are as an organization. The ones below it are what other researchers and authors have put in. You know, they've said, oh, the adoption is infancy, then it's intermediate and maturity. Well, that didn't work for me. So in this book I published, I put, this is what I use, because I wanted to demonstrate to all our clients where you are, whether you're operational, strategic, and whether you want to get to enterprise and how you do that. So therefore, we have this look and feel of where you are. So understand where you are now and explain it and articulate it. I won't go into that because that explains, that's for a different presentation really, because I don't have time today. So what I've done there in 90 seconds, I've basically said, you need to understand the evolution and maturity, the maturation of GIS in local government. Because if you don't understand where you are, you're not going to be able to understand where you come from and where you're going. And if you don't understand that, then it's going to be hard to head off all these challenges, barriers, and pitfalls. A lack of knowledge of where you're going is an absolute pitfall. Okay, let's take a deep breath there for a second. And let's get into the challenges and solutions. And as you can see, when this comes up, there you go. There are all the challenges, barriers, and pitfalls, as many as I can think of a few years ago. And most of them hit the mark. Let's talk about these for a second. Okay, your challenges, all right, and we may overlap here, so brace yourself for this. This is a whirlwind trip here. These are the challenges you face. People, your first challenge as GIS manager, coordinator, is securing buy-in for the big picture is critical. People, 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 okay? The challenge that you don't have a strategic plan is a massive boat anchor. You must develop a GIS plan of action. You can develop organically, you can use me, you can use our team, you can use another company, but you must put an action plan together in some fashion. If you don't, you're doomed. If you do not have a vision for your GIS, it is a massive challenge moving forward. If you don't have goals and objectives, it is an ultimate challenge. How the heck are you going to do GIS without a vision, goals and objectives? And you are looking at a quantifiable return on investment. If you don't have a quantifiable return on investment in some fashion, again, it's going to hinder your success. You must sell and promote GIS. You must align your GIS with the organization's vision, general vision. You've got to have a funding mechanism. If you don't have a funding mechanism, you really must always follow the money. Make sure GIS is funded through reliable sources on an annual basis. Otherwise, it could end at any time and you're not doing your job. Poor enterprise data accuracy and lack of an understanding of data quality is going to be a problem. Here's one issue I wrote in this recent book I wrote. The most important ingredients in GIS in the future is data. Data is going to become more important than absolutely anything. Data, data, data. Because remember, we're getting real-time data now. We're getting data from sensors. We're getting data from everywhere. And your job is going to be much more about how you process that data. Also, the future does include much more regionalization of GIS. So you've got to embrace that. Do not go into this without understanding that you have to have intergovernmental relationships and agreements. It's not just your town or city or county or region. You have to work and play well with others, and that's a fact. It will be a challenge if you're not sharing information and if you're not open to the idea of sharing information. Enterprise project management is key. That means you are managing interdepartmental GIS solutions throughout your organization. Okay. There's an enormous amount of challenges. Get it right. I mean, make notes. Do what you have to do. Make notes. Now, barriers. Barriers are of a similar ilk in as much as, you know, we have challenges, barriers, and pitfalls. But if we look at the barriers to deploying an enterprise tend to be technical and logistical in nature. So we, again, people. And this is what I'm saying is, If you could all go back and do a degree in psychology, that would be particularly useful. And that degree in psychology focus on why people do things and what people think and what makes them think what they think. Appreciate that and understand people. And that's a problem we have throughout the world. You know, we don't have empathy. So a high performance organization and a new management strategy for dealing with people is fundamental. Again, the barrier will be funding. No measurable results are a key issue. No buy-in from staff. Again, the governance model, roles and responsibilities are barriers. It's more about the people. Little investment, no good management techniques. And there are techniques. So for example, how do you handle calls for service in GIS? Well, there's a way to do that. Unstructured standard operating procedures. No enterprise database design is going to be a barrier to success. There's no doubt about that. And if you look at the history and understand the history of that, you'll understand what Esri have done. No enterprise architecture design. Well, there you go. That will jeopardize everything. And deployment of enterprise software, web-based tools. Let me explain that, number 12, a little bit, is Esri's investment in the new suite of tools has made GIS has made it refreshing, okay? And you need to be right on it, all right? Pitfalls. Let's look at this one again. I just want to show you this sort of all together. And let's look at pitfalls. There's a surprise. Succession planning has been the Achilles of many organizations. What I mean by that is the fact that you're a GIS manager and GIS coordinator, and you have got no plan if 2 people up and go, or 1 person up and go. It's difficult to do it, but we've got to address succession planning. You've got to guarantee the annual funding. You've got to, and this is a major pitfall, is the smart city or the smart organization or the smart county or the smart town is all about a system of systems, integration and interoperability, not silos. You have to address that. Poor data accuracy and data duplication is a pitfall. No strategy for education is a pitfall. GIS is too complicated. 0 publications and promotions. Lack of data sharing with citizens, lack of availability of GIS software. Maybe the software is too slow. Maybe there's poor IT infrastructure, a lack of succession planning, as I mentioned earlier. And if you look at pitfalls, it's really hazards along the way. They refer to hidden or unsuspected difficulty in the implementation process. It's very difficult to break it out into challenges, barriers, and pitfalls, but I did so we could talk about it. And there's a lot of overlap. Because really, a challenge is people, a barrier is people, and a pitfall can be people. So it's all about the people side of things. Okay. If we wrap that all up, okay, we can say at the top that now we have a way of talking about how we build an enterprise sustainable and enduring GIS. We look at all the strategic issues. We look at the tactical, technical, logistical, and political issues that I will face. So let's say you were going into an organization and you have no GIS. You would look at all of those things and you would want to head them off. And then you would say, well, what are the challenges, barriers, and pitfalls? Now we have them. And then you have to start introducing, well, okay, now I put my blueprint together, and now I can start thinking about the characteristics of a GIS coordinator. Okay. But before we get to that, let's just summarize a few things so we can all hold hands and agree that a lot of this is good stuff. So maybe 100 organizations can't do it. Now, this is a list of organizations I've worked with, just a few of them, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. And I've enjoyed working with them. And a lot of these organizations become friends, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And it's fantastic. And that, because remember, I'm writing my third book, and it's basically on the back of the expertise of all these local government people that have helped me along the way. So my career continues to be absolutely rewarding. Now, my point here is, if we look at challenges and we start kind of saying, well, you know, which are the most important ones? Challenges, barriers, and pitfalls. Because now, remember, not everybody, we can't all remember everything. I think there's a reason why people say that there's a special number of 7. But if we look at the challenges, maybe the top 5 challenges are no strategic plan, no goals and objectives, not selling or promoting GIS, no funding mechanism, no endorsement from elected officials. Maybe they're the key things you need to be working on. And then if we look at barriers which overlap, GIS funding, you know, no measurable results, no buy-in from staff, no governance model, no enterprise database design, no deployment of enterprise software. Interesting. And then again, what are the pitfalls? Well, we put people there, no seamless integration with database, silos, poor departmental data accuracy, no strategy for education and training, and lack of availability of GIS software. So you get my feel. The reason I wanted to do this, I think it's incredibly insightful for us all to actually see these types of things, and it's a shot across the proverbial bow. If you're a GIS coordinator, you can't say, well, no, these don't apply to me. They all apply to you. One of them will surface and hurt you badly. We need to make sure that we have the skill set to head all of them off. And we're in a good place because we've talked about them. And it's simple. Not selling or promoting GIS success in the top is number 3 in top 5 challenges for the challenges. Well, you've got to do something about that. And the answers are simple, really. You've got to promote it. You've got to have brown bag lunches. You've got to give presentations. You've got to win awards. So therefore, as I said, and I come back to my original statement, a failure to implement and maintain a true enterprise, sustainable, scalable, and enduring GIS begins and ends with the GIS coordinator. So if that's the case, what's the perfect GIS coordinator or GIS manager? Well, we need to all work hard on becoming great communicators and presenters. So whoever's on the line today, if that's not your forte, we need to work on it. We need to work on how you inspire or inspires to share vision, goals, and objectives of what we're trying to do. Enthusiasm and passion. You need to be an educator, understand the art of cooperation, problem solving with analytical skills. You must have empathy, competence, ability to delegate, integrity, and team building skills. Wow. I told you when we first started, I mean, the GIS coordinator position really needs an awful lot of skills to make this happen. Now, so let's say we agree that they're just a few of the major characteristics. The problem you have is that this board are the specific tasks you have to be checking off. The problem is, it's not just one page. It's it's 3 pages to go back. So, from a GIS coordinator position, your challenge, barriers, and pitfalls is the fact that your challenge is to have all of these types of skills from a GIS governance and management, from a digital data and database skills, from procedures, workflow, and integration, euphemism for interoperability, remember. This is the smart system of systems you're integrating in. Expert level with understanding of applications of GIS software. Expert with GIS training, education, and knowledge transfer. Understanding IT, infrastructure, and architecture. Now, you may be saying, well, to have all of these skills, you're going to have to work extremely hard. Yes, you are. And I think once you've done it, you're going to enjoy it. But very much like me, I can remember all of these boxes, not this first page, this second page, and this third page. And once you remember those boxes, you know, that strategic planning, you can check it off, and then that opens up 20 other boxes of what you should be talking about. Understanding governance models. Personally, we should all be able to say, yeah, okay, I know that. I'm going to check that one off, because basically I know what a decentralized model is. I know what a centralized model is. I know what a hybrid, I know what a regionalized model is. And I know what a federated model is. Then you look at enterprise project management. What the heck does that mean? You need to know. Effective communication. All I'm saying is that your ability to understand all of these things is absolutely key. And if you don't, it is a challenge. It's either a challenge, it's a barrier, or it'll be a pitfall to the success of your organization. So that leaves us, and this is really good timing actually, it leaves us with an opportunity to finish with potentially your top priorities for GIS success. I'm not saying this is perfect, but let's say we agree that you need a ratified GIS vision, goals, and objectives, which comes from the strategic plan. You need a strategic, enterprise, sustainable, scale, and enduring GIS. You need an optimum GIS governance model, support, and operations. You need key performance indicators that are updated on a quarterly, annually, biannually basis. You need to be looking at you as a high performance organization. And that's a presentation unto itself. You need to have reliable and accurate digital data and databases. And you need training, education, and knowledge transfer throughout the organization. Number 8 is enterprise GIS software. Easier said than done. You need sustainable IT infrastructure, mobile GIS. You need to be understanding interoperability and what it means, as well as procedures, the workflows, and the integration of all these disparate systems. And then as a GIS manager, you really need to understand the art of selling GIS, the return on investment and value proposition, consensus building, and best business practices. And there's a lot more. I don't want you really to copy this. I want you to build your own. I mean, I need you to build your own what GIS success looks like. But it's going to have all of the components we talked about. I talk about in other presentations and in my book, 6 pillars of GIS sustainability. And those 6 pillars of GIS sustainability are GIS governance, data and databases, workflow, procedures and integration, software, IT infrastructure and training, education and knowledge transfer. If you want to understand GIS, you start with those 6 and then you break it out into all the bits and pieces that make up those components. So your challenges and your barriers and pitfalls all fall under all of these categories. Okay. Now, I was going to finish there, and I'm really nearly finished, and I thank you for all attending. And I'm great, because that's very rare for me to be on time or ahead of time. But here's a clue. And obviously I'm being a little bit facetious here, just joking. This is my clue. I don't know whether you're the same as I am, but you know, the one thing, let me bring this entire thing up here. Okay. Let me tell you the one thing that I think, and it may surprise you, is not so much reinventing, it's kind of reorganizing how we think about GIS. And that is Esri's GIS Hub. And I don't just do this. We're a business partner of Esri's, but you know, it doesn't matter that it's Esri's product. But when it first came out, it really wasn't seen really as, well, whatever it is. But I see it as quite it's not a paradigm shift, I'll tell you that, because there's no such thing as a paradigm shift. But this is a shift in how we organize GIS data. And the one problem we've always had in local government, and as GIS coordinators, as consultants of GIS coordinators, is a way of organizing, controlling, managing, and sharing information. So it's easy to access, easy to use, and understandable. Now, I'm a big fan of shapes. I need to draw things out. But when you look at this, if you start from the left, this is a solution to a lot of your challenges, a lot of barriers and your pitfalls. And that is having open data available, having enterprise solutions, and then working your departmental solutions around the departments like this. Is just a few of them. Then you got city initiatives, community data, map gallery, charts and statistics, learn about digital data, learn how to use the hub. My recommendation to you is look at this. We're building this solution for Pierce, we're building it for Broken Arrow, we're building it for half a dozen organizations because everybody understands it. And it takes away that challenge you have of educating people. In fact, we were talking to a fantastic town in Massachusetts today. And this is the type of thing we're saying, this is what you need to do, because you're a small town and everybody wants to just go to the website, go to their department and go to their dashboard and their web app. And it's all seamless and it's open. So my point here is it's a potential solution that will help you move forward with your GIS. Now, be prepared. The future of GIS technology is advancing, whether it's the Internet of Things, whether it's hyper-precise spatial data, GIS in the cloud, improved data sharing, advanced citizen engagement, accurate and information in-car navigation, participatory GIS, geosensors, indoor GPS, passive social media GIS, miniaturization GPS dots, use of drones, improved display technology, 3D, 4D. I mean, when you look at what Esri have got now, somehow you've got to explain ArcGIS Hub, which should be easy enough to do. But you've also got to explain ArcGIS Urban and 3D modeling. It's around the corner. And a lot of these types of things explain themselves. So we have a whole slew of new things happening. And remember this, don't say, well, I don't know what's in the future. The future is now, all right? The future is advanced crowdsourcing applications. The future is big data analytics. It is GPS. It is advanced geofencing and social media. It is interoperability and enterprise integration. It is all of those things. And all of that comes with the same challenges, barriers, and pitfalls. And today, I'm hoping we've at least addressed a whole slew of those things that are coming at you from all corners. I'd like to thank everybody for attending and listening to that. I am particularly enthusiastic about working with local government to make this a success. And I hope today, the one thing you can take from today's presentation or webinar is actionable intelligence. Now we'll quickly just look before we finish, just to see if there are any questions. There are no questions, which is good. And please feel free to contact me or anyone else at Geographic Technology if you have questions about today's webinar, but we appreciate everybody attending and thank you very much.